So today my presentation will be on Tsar Alexis of Russia, and my name is Will Shaney. So first, I wanted to talk about his upbringing. There wasn't much information about him before the age of 16, which is when he took over the throne, but here's what I have. So Tsar Alexis was born in Moscow on March 9th, 1629. He is the son of Michael, who is the first Romanov monarch of Russia, and at 16, like I said, he became the Tsar of Russia after his father died. He was the successor. So his family life. Alexis was married twice. His first wife, Maria, birthed him 13 children, including his successor, Peter the Great, who's pictured on the right. Peter the Great is probably his most notable child out of all of them because there is a lot. Um, After Maria's death, he married his second wife, Natalia, who also gave him many more children. Um, After Alexis' death, there would be power struggles between him and his children, but not between him and his children, but between each of his children over power, because there were so many, there was a huge power struggle. Um, Ultimately, the Romanov family would stay in power for 3 centuries until 1917, which is over 300 years, which is very impressive to say the least. So, I would like to talk about his religious and cultural policies. Um, in religious matters, Alexis sided with Patriarch Nikon during the schism in the Russian Orthodox Church. The schism in the Russian Orthodox Church was the splitting of the church into an official church. On the right, pictured is just a Russian church. Um, Alexis sponsored the construction of many churches and monasteries, further solidifying the church's influence over society. He enforced religious orthodoxy and suppressed dissenting religious sects, such as the Old Believers, who opposed reforms within the church. So basically, Alexis was very strict on religion, and he wanted one religion in Russia, and he enforced that. However he did by suppressing people who opposed him, such as the Old Believers, or so on. And yeah, so he was very, very strong on religion. Um, Sort of like religion, he was also very strong on some of his economic policies. So Alexis implemented policies to encourage agricultural development, including land grants to nobles and peasants, as well as the establishment of state-owned agricultural states. So basically, these policies encouraged farming and increased farming actually by creating state-owned agricultural states, um, which also helped influence trade and money made from trading. He wanted to have Russia have trade and commerce with other nations to expand Russia's trade networks. He encouraged trade by establishing trade agreements with other nations, laying the groundwork for trade with Russia as we know today. He introduced tax reforms to improve the efficiency of taxing and to increase state revenue. Alexis aimed to have total control over the workforce. He enforced strict regulations on serfdom, limiting the mobility of peasants and tying them to the land. So, as you can see, he's very strict on many things, including his economic policies and religion. Um, expansion, and military reforms. Under Alexis, Russia expanded its territory through military conquests and diplomatic maneuvers. The main direction of the reform was the mass creation of the New Order regiments, which were basically just the old Russian army. Soldiers, riders, dragoons, and hussars. These are basically people in the army with special skills, you could say, whether it's riding like horse riders or bow and arrowists. Um, he just created a new army and a strong army. Alexis also launched successful campaigns against the Crimean Khanate in the Khanate of Kazan, which is modern day Ukraine, extending Russia's influence into the Caucasus and Central Asia. Also, I apologize if I mispronounce anything. Yeah. There were 3 wars of Alexis's reign: Iran, Poland, and Sweden. 3 main wars. So, the Iranian War. In 1651, the Safavid or Iranian troops attacked Russian fortifications in the North Caucasus. The main issue involved the expansion of Russian garrison, which is like a part of the Russian army on the Koisu River. The successful Safavid attack resulted in the destruction of the Russian fortress and the Russian garrison. So Iran was successful in this war. But in 1653, Alexis agreed to settle the conflict, saying that the conflict happened without his consent, basically denying any involvement in ordering the attacks or deflecting the blame on someone else other than him. Next was the Russo Polish War. So, this war of 1654 to 1667 was a series of conflicts between Russia and Poland Lithuania under King John II Casimir. The war was sparked by territorial disputes and political instability in the region, including the Cossack uprising led by Bohdan Klemensky. Alexis sought to expand Russian territory westward into Ukraine and Belarus, which were under Polish control. The conflict eventually ended with the Treaty of Andrusovo in 1667, which recognized Russian control over Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine, and the eastern territories of Ukraine, marking a significant territorial gain for Russia at the expense of Poland Lithuania. The Russo-Swedish War. The Russo-Swedish War was started in 1656 and ended 2 years later in 1658, and it was a conflict between Russia and Sweden under King Charles Gustav. The war was primarily fought over the control of the Baltic Sea and territorial ambitions in the region. Alexis sought to assert Russian dominance in the Baltic region by capturing Swedish-held territories along the coast. The conflict peaked in the Battle of Valkeila in 1658, where Russian forces defeated the Swedes, leading to the Treaty of Tsar, which secured Russian control over Ingria and access to Baltic Sea. So, as I've shown, most of Alexis's wars were based off like conflict over territories or him wanting to expand his territories and expand Russians' dominance. So, what were Alexis's relations with foreign powers? So, after the wars with Sweden and Poland, he maintained diplomatic relations with them, as well as Austria, negotiating treaties and alliances to secure Russia's borders. Alexis strengthened ties with neighboring states, including the Ottoman Empire and Persia, to open new trade routes and strengthen Russia's position in the region. His diplomatic efforts laid the groundwork for Russia's emergence as a major player on the international stage. Alexis also maintained diplomatic relations with European powers, including England and the Netherlands. He sought alliances with trade agreements with the Western countries to modernize Russia and strengthen its position in Europe. Alexis had um, got a lot of influence from the Western European nations, so that's why he maintained good relations with them. Patronage of the arts and sciences. So, Alexis was a patron of the arts and sciences, creating a cultural development in Russia. He sponsored the establishment of schools, many libraries, and academics to promote education and intellectual knowledge. So he was very big on teaching the citizens of Russia and increasing their knowledge by building schools and libraries and stuff. He supported the arts, ordering the construction of palaces, theaters, and monuments that showcase Russia's cultural achievements. His patronage contributed to the flourishing of Russian literature, art, and architecture during the 17th century. So his influences are still seen today in Russian society and seen very well, actually. What was his legacy and his impact? So Alexis was the first Tsar to sign laws on his authority in his council. In his council passes the Sobo Uzulhain. I tried. I am sorry, I tried. Of 1649, which strengthened bonds between autocracy and the lower nobility. His efforts to centralize power and strengthen the monarchy laid the groundwork for the autocratic rule that characterized later Russian Tsars, um, which were in his family for 300 years, as I mentioned. Alexis's policies shaped Russian society, culture, and governance for generations to come, leaving a lasting legacy on the Russian state. Here are my sources. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it.